In the quarter of a decade since its creation, UFC has seen its fair share of phenomenal fighters. And James Toney. Just a quick look at the UFC Hall of Fame and you are inundated with legend after legend from the ever-expanding world of MMA. But everybody loves an underdog. Fighters who you think haven't got a prayer, scoring wins against opponents you'd bet your bloody house on. These scrappy, unfancied competitors defied the odds and shot themselves all the way to the top. I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture MMA, and these are the 10 biggest UFC underdog wins of all time. Number 10, Randy Couture versus Chuck Liddell. After Couture moved to light heavyweight, the UFC thought they'd ease him in against a man with a 10-fight win streak and someone who could punch me into 2019 in Chuck Liddell. Couture was 39 at this point, and it was thought that a loss to Liddell could send him into retirement. But as both men were tiring in the third, Couture shot for a double, ended up in full mount, and picked his shots to get the shocking TKO stoppage, proving he wasn't expendable yet, eh? Number 9, Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn. Edgar was on a 3-fight win streak going into this contest, but the general feeling was that BJ Penn, with victories over legends such as Renzo Gracie, Matt Hughes and Jens Pulver, would just be too good and would soon be licking Edgar's blood off his gloves. Oh, stop doing that. However, Edgar picked apart Penn with kicks, strikes, and takedowns. The fight went the distance, and Edgar got his hand raised for a unanimous points decision victory. The answer did it again at UFC 118 in an even more impressive display of raw MMA talent, showing fans and the world he was here to stay. Number 8, Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva. To step in the cage against a fighter who hasn't lost in 7 years and is generally deemed the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world is a daunting prospect. I'd call it f***ing insane, but still, that was the challenge that Chris Weidman faced when he fought Anderson Silva for the middleweight world championship at UFC 162. Silva escaped all attempts to take it to the ground and soon started his usual mind games, goading Weidman to stand and trade with him, even having spells with his hands on his hips. Taking the piss, basically. It continued into the second round, with Silva dropping his hands and just avoiding Weidman's strikes with movement. Until he didn't. A crisp left hook saw Silva hit the mat, Herb Dean step in, Weidman become champ, and the Spider's invincibility go down the drain. Number 7, Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. UFC 1. An 8-man tournament, no weight classes, no judges, no timeouts, a tournament purely created to find out which fighting discipline reigns supreme. Oh, and Art Jimmerson wearing one bloody glove. I know I've mentioned this before, but what was the plan here? Anyway, the semi-finals saw Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master Royce Gracie face professional wrestler Ken Shamrock. Even Shamrock later admitted he thought he'd make short work of some karate guy. Instead, Gracie put on a flawless display, showing size didn't really matter when you had a skill set as in-depth as his. He went on to win the tournament and instantly stapled his name as an MMA god. Number 6. Ian Freeman versus Frank Mir. At the time of this fight, Frank Mir, or is it Mir, was the UFC's up-and-coming golden boy. Freeman, meanwhile, had lost 4 of his last 6 bouts and just days before the contest was hit with the devastating news that his father had brain cancer and had just days to live. Mir had won his first 4 fights all by way of submission and, when looking for a tap, straight away, even popping the machine's knee out of place in the process. However, Freeman, undeterred by the whole knee now being buggered thing, pinned Mir up against the cage and unleashed a huge amount of elbows and punches before standing back up. The contest was waved off and Freeman walked away the victorious underdog. Number 5. TJ Dillashaw versus Renan BARAO. In May 2014, a young TJ Dillashaw found himself in a UFC bantamweight title match in only his 11th professional fight. His opponent, Renan BARAO, the bantamweight godfather on a 35-fight win streak. BARAO had been tearing through the world's best bantamweights for 9 years and was probably one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the UFC when the Dillashaw bout came around. But it's on this list, so You can probably tell where this is going. The youngster showed experience way beyond his years, with immaculate head movement and timing throughout the 5-round war. Halfway through the final round, Barao was caught with a head kick, and Dillashaw followed up with a flurry of punches. The referee had seen enough, Dillashaw was champion, and Joe Rogan nearly exploded. Number 4, Michael Bisping versus Luke Rockhold. Oh, baby. There was no love lost in this one. The two first met back in 2014, with Rockhold winning via guillotine. Afterwards, a war of words ensued between the two, and fans were eagerly awaiting a rematch, which they got at UFC 199 after Chris Weidman pulled out due to injury. Bisping had been filming XXX Return of Xander Cage, a movie described online as the worst Vin Diesel film ever. It's almost impressive, that, isn't it? But when he received the phone call on just 17 days' notice, he immediately accepted and got the title fight he'd been wanting for over a decade. Bisping piled the pressure on early, moving well and landing clean. Rockhold, meanwhile, looked so casual it was like he couldn't be arsed. It took just 3 minutes for the count to land a huge left hand that shook Rockhold. He landed another seconds later, and Big John McCarthy stepped in to hand Bisping an unbelievable middleweight title win. Number 3, Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor. You could argue this one shouldn't be on the list. I mean, Nate did say he wasn't surprised afterwards, or words to that effect, but the general feeling was that Diaz wouldn't be able to cope with McGregor's fast pace and heavy hands, especially on 10 days' notice. Diaz had been drinking tequila in Cabo when he got the call, because of course he had. However, the move to welterweight became an issue for McGregor almost instantly in this fight. He was breathing heavily and showing signs of fatigue at the end of the first round. Diaz, on the other hand, who'd found success with his signature Stockton slap, was showing no signs of tiredness and clearly bloody loving this. Although bleeding heavily from a cut, Diaz wasn't fazed, and after sprawling a sloppy McGregor attempt at a double, he showcased his superior jiu-jitsu to take the back of the Irishman and shock everyone by locking in a rear naked choke. Conor tapped, and McGregor haters had their go-to meme for years to come. Number 2, Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey. The kick heard round the world. Ronda Rousey is the person who put women's MMA on the global stage. The Olympic bronze medalist quickly gained a celebrity status unlike anything seen with previous champions. Holly Holm was a multiple-time boxing champion and on a 9-fight win streak going into the bouts. Look, we all knew her stand-up was good, but her ground game hadn't really been tested, and it was thought that Ronda would test and probably beat her with that. Holm, who'd presumably watched Ronda armbar half the division, had other plans. Less than a minute into the second round, Holm landed a head kick that not only stunned Ronda, but the whole f***ing internet and most of the planet. There had been this indestructible feeling built around Rousey that crumbled and fell away as she fell to the mat, defeated. Number 1, Matt Serra versus George St. Pierre. Undoubtedly, the biggest underdog win in the UFC's 25-year history is Matt Serra's victory against GSP at UFC 69. Going into the bout, Serra had amassed an average 5-4 record in the UFC, whilst GSP was on a 6-fight win streak and flying. Like a lamb to the slaughter, we all thought. Nope. It took Serra just 3 minutes before he clipped the chin of GSP and sent the Canadian crashing to the mat. It was unfathomable. Like seeing Dana White with hair, you couldn't quite believe what you were looking at. The whole arena was shook as Serra was crowned the new welterweight champion. Yes, GSP did beat him in a rematch the year later, but nothing will take away from Serra causing the biggest upset ever seen. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Adam from What Culture, and I'll see you soon. Wow, wasn't that great, guys? I don't know, it's your decision. Subscribe if you enjoyed it down here. Check out more of our content over here, or check out some of our other channels over here. Oh, you better click it before I do. No, seriously, you should click it though.